For many people around the world in this time of COVID-19, life has become particularly fraught, unbalanced, and discomforting. Moreover, for meditators, particularly those whose heart is connected to the Dhamma and the Golden Land, it is very hard to get information on how the pandemic is affecting things there. We wondered how we could do our part in helping to brighten people's day just a bit by providing that information. So we changed our normal run of interviews to bring you this new series, which examines how the coronavirus is specifically affecting monasteries across Myanmar and meditators around the world. Continue to check the Insight Myanmar podcast feed for upcoming episodes related to this topic. We know this is a challenging time for many out there and hope all our listeners are staying physically safe and mentally sound.
If we are complacent and don't do really aggressive containment and mitigation, the number could go way up, many, many millions.
To be isolating patients, emphasizing social distancing.
Wuhan, China confirmed the coronavirus outbreak is now a pandemic.
That COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
In Italy, one of the worst affected countries, the pace
and
of
business supply chains are being disrupted around the globe. This combination of people being unable to work, businesses being unable to
It's confirmed the coronavirus outbreak is now a pandemic.
Change for sure. It's been a bit up.
We will realize
see an opportunity in this situation.
Please make your compassion
whatever
and loving kindness
karma
to the
that is
people.
good you have done
we are
this
all
will protect
looking
you.
out for each other.
Due to COVID-19, the meditators become more
support
conscious.
People. They can use this time to grow in Dhamma.
Kick out your negative minds.
People can become closer to each other.
Please send in metta to all over the world, all over the universe.
See a
Change for sure.
Brightest and let's work hard more and more for sending loving kindness.
People can learn how to help each other, how to love, seeing new horizons of life.
We do see some positive aspects of this corona crisis in the world. We see that in a sense that brings people also closer together. People getting closer together and watching out for each other. We have more time for our families, for the community, and time to meditate.
Please make your compassion and loving kindness.
It was kind of actually very warm and very, very kind of them. Stabilize the heart. This reminder of this uncertainty of life, when we don't know. See what we can do and what we cannot do. What we can accomplish and what we cannot.
Remember peace in the face of suffering.
This is the 6th episode in our COVID-19 in Myanmar series. And for this one, we're changing things up a bit and trying something new. Past episodes have featured voices from several different groups: local Burmese, women, monastics, expats who left the country, and expats who stayed. Taken together, these shows are a powerful archival testament to the range of responses from meditators and monastics as the coronavirus swept the world. From reflections on death to vulnerably sharing fears about infection, from seeking protection in sīla and sutta recitations to finding a safe place of practice, our guests have shared openly and honestly about what they did, how they felt, how their meditation informed their views, which was in turn impacted by the pandemic spread. One of our motivations in producing this series was a desire to use this platform to share words of wisdom during a particularly troubling time. However, now a good half year into whatever this new normal is, the reality of having to live with this pandemic has transformed from those early initial shockwaves to a kind of uneasy settling in. For that reason, after this episode, we're taking a pause to figure out how to best proceed with the series, so that it remains relevant and continues to reflect the lived reality of practitioners as they adjust to changing conditions. All of which bring me back to this current episode, the Thabarwa edition. As the title indicates, this is the first show in this series in which all the voices are from a single place. In this case, Thabarwa Monastery in Tan Lien. The episode departs from others in more ways than just this, however, as some of the interviews were collected right as the world began to shut down because of COVID-19. Zach and I realized that while not that long ago in time, they seem eons ago in other ways, as so much has happened since then. So besides the original talk of the guests, you'll hear some updates as well on how and what they're doing. This before and after approach allows the listener to follow their journeys across time and see how their practice and mind have adjusted as the ground continues to shift under their feet. I hope that you have found some value and insight in this run of COVID-19 in Myanmar episodes. It is a scary and unsettling time for many of us, and the words of the Buddha can surely be an aid as we look for firm footing. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and we hope that you keep safe and healthy and have a genuine wish for all beings to be happy. Please enjoy the show that follows. First, we hear from Thabarwa Sayadaw. This is a recording of a public talk that he gave earlier this year in April to an assembled group of foreign meditators at his Tan Lien branch monastery.
The monk, he is a leader who controls discipline in this area. He informed us about 5 foreigners from this center. They are running for exercise in early morning. That is also not suitable in this situation. So they want us to remind the foreigner here not to go out of the center, not to go to the village, because villagers here are afraid of the foreigners. There's also report to that month of discipline informed about one foreigner from this center going around the village and buying the food and come back to the center. So he posts about that foreigners in Facebook. He informed even to the government on Facebook. What they understand is here in the Thabarwa center, we cannot control the foreigner. That's why they are going out of the center. They worry for this center. There will be virus because of many foreigners here. There are also foreigners in Star City. They also worry for that, but they are staying at their place. Here in the Thabarwa center, many foreigners, and near here, many old and sick people also. Besides, there's Goodwill village. That's why they worry if there is virus here in the Thabarwa center, it will spread to this town. So they don't want virus to be here. So they are serious for the foreigner to stay only in the center. You are concerned with us. That's why they remind us. On the comment about that post on Facebook, some of the people support for that idea, but some argue from the side of the foreigner. Some people understand the foreigners are staying here for a long time, volunteering. That's why not much need to worry. But some people agree with that post, not to go out of the center. Not only for foreigners, but also for the local people also. The leader of the village is responsible for the villagers not to go out, to stay at home. If you are going out, there must be a reason. Without reason, they may try to stop it. So concerned with the foreigners, they may be more serious because they cannot communicate with you. They don't know about the foreigners and the foreigners may not know about them. So in this situation, they may think only in the bad way. I went Armstrong in one township of Yangon. That's why they report to the local authorized person. but they are reluctant to give the permit. They cannot give permit easily, so they send the applicants to go here and there, because even the government is serious for the virus. Therefore, the local authorized person is also concerned with the government. That's why he don't want to make mistake. Therefore, it is difficult even to go Armstrong with many people. But this is Buddhist country. That's why there are many people who believe in Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha deeply. That's why they feel safe to deal with Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Therefore, some of the donors, they are willing to do good deeds as much as possible. Especially they want me to go Armstrong. I rarely go Armstrong because of traveling in the country and abroad. Most of the problems in this country are concerned with the mind, misunderstanding, wrong view. That's why I have to solve a lot of this kind of problem. Here in this incident, no virus now here in Thailand, but there is virus in their dog. So we need to solve that problem, which is really happening in the dogs of the local people here, some of the local people here. For them, it is really important. Most of the thinking will not happen for sure, but we need to solve the problems in the mind. In the West, people emphasize the real condition, but it is really important for most of the people here to be safe in their mind. May not be safe in reality, but to be safe in the mind is more important. This is Buddhist country, that's why most of the people may emphasize the mind rather than the material or actual world. This is different view with the Westerner. That's why you cannot argue with them. You need to try to use it in the right way, to be using only. I have to solve this kind of problems all the time. I rely on doing good deeds to solve this problem. It will take time, but it works. You are right in your way, so also they are right in their way, but no one is complete. You cannot grasp you are right, they are wrong. Because of grasping the one side, there is problem between each other. Now you are here in Myanmar, you are dealing with Myanmar people. That's why you must try to know about the good point and weakness of the Myanmar people. This is meditation in daily life. When you meditate, you may understand Mahasi method or Goenka method. That is not complete. You should understand the weakness and good points of each method. You must be able to use every method in the right way of using only. This is real meditation. If you don't know the truth about meditation, you cannot get success. So also, if you don't know about the truth of Myanmar people here, you may not be able to solve the problem with the local people here. This is the difficult times for the international volunteers here. So also, this is the great opportunity for you all. They think you are dangerous. So if you can prove you are safe by staying away from the virus, they may believe in the foreigners. If there is virus in the foreigners, they will feel more dangerous concerned with the foreigners. There is difficulty, so also there is opportunity. If you are united in doing good deeds together in order to solve the problems concerned with virus with you, that will be the best solution for all international volunteers here. This is the same for the Power Center. Because of many old and sick people here, because of crowded with donor volunteer here in this center, some people believe it is really dangerous concerned with the virus. So if we can prove we are free from the virus, they may not misunderstand in the future. Because they understand many different people are here in this center, so it is really difficult to control this organization. If we are able to control this center to be free from virus, we can prove the others we are not dangerous. In this way, more and more people will come to stay and volunteer in this center. You are responsible for yourself and also for the center. So also everyone here is responsible for oneself and for the center. The Power Center Thailand already passed through many difficulties similar like this, but we can survive up till now. Most of the foreigners here are volunteer, not meditator. That's the weakness of the international volunteer. If there are more international meditators, you will be more reliable. Many people rely on me and on this center because I am a meditator and also I am a volunteer. I am a meditation master. In this way, I belong to Dhamma or doing good deeds. They believe in me because of doing good deeds, doing all kinds of good deeds, not only volunteering, but also meditation, keeping precept, and teaching about the truth. Many people rely on this center because of doing all kinds of good deeds without limit. In this way, this center concerned with Dhamma or doing good deeds. That's why they believe in this center because of doing good deeds or Dhamma. Not because of the place, not because of the name, not because of the people here, but because of the doing good deeds continuously without limit. You are able to volunteer, but need more meditation, serious meditation. If there are more meditators than volunteer, you will be more reliable for sure. Meditation is the highest of all. There is keeping precept when you meditate. Volunteering is the basis of doing good deeds. Volunteering only is not enough. You all can stay here. You are a part of this center especially because of volunteering and less meditation. If there is more volunteering, there will be more foreigners, more chance of doing good deeds. Meditation is needed by many people in the world. Volunteering is not concerned with many people. More people are needed to learn meditation. We can see more volunteering in meditation than patient care and old age care. If you get out of the compound of the center, you will be reported by the villagers. In the future, it will be like that, no outside of the center also, because we should stay away from public area. The main road is not only using by us, but also for the villagers. So we should be careful in public area on the main road now, but in the future, maybe more strict, serious. You may need to stay only in USA Hall, because from 10 to 20 of April, there is an announcement by the government to stay, not to go out for water festival, only to stay at home to avoid the virus. It will start from 10 of April for 10 days. That is serious. So without enough reason, you should not go out. It is better to stay only in the room. I will go Armstrong tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. If we know what you need, one of you can follow and stay in the car. And then if you find what is suitable for you, for the group, you can take it. No need to buy at the market. We are donated a lot. Besides, when you go out, you should be careful to wear the mask. If you are dealing with the stranger, it is better, because the time became more and more serious, more and more dangerous. If you are not wearing the mask, they may think you are not safe. People here have strong attachment to the law and regulation also. Now, the government emphasize to stay at home, to stay by yourself, no ceremony, no gathering. Because of remindings again and again, more and more people believe it is safe if you stay at home and not safe if you are out. So by staying outside, you will be believed you are not safe. By staying together with the others, you will be believed you are not safe by the virus. That's why they may make problem for you, because of believing. So everyone is serious to be safe from the virus. Therefore, if you are not doing like them, you will not be convenient with them. Now more and more reminding to wear the mask also. Especially outside, you must wear masks to protect yourself and also to protect from the others. So choose one and follow, and choose what is useful for international volunteer. Tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock, we will be leaving in the morning. There are regular donations to this center by over 20 quarter in Yangon division. They donate together once a week. Because we open the center full time and accept everyone for free of accommodation, food, medicine, we are able to do like this for over 12 years continuously. That's why more and more people believe it is possible to do good deeds without limit regularly. In this way, they want to do good deeds as much as they can. When they have chance to donate food to this center, they started donating. They invite us to their quarter to collect food. Some of the donors are really serious to donate to this center because of doing good deeds without limit continuously. So we are serious not to close the center. So also they are serious not to stop donating regularly to the center. Therefore, some of the donors are willing to provide food, even there is no chance for us to go out of the center. They will collect the food by themselves and then they were trying to send to the center. If we can go out, 1 or 2 months, and some volunteer will go with the car and trying to collect the food as regularly, and then come back to the center. They don't want to stop supplying food to us because we are also the same. We will never stop opening the center and feeding food and giving accommodation to the most needed people here in this country. We are able to do good deeds accurately. Therefore, they are trying to do good deeds accurately like us. So this is cooperation. It is the same for the international volunteer. As long as there are international volunteers here in this center will survive for a long time. If this center survives for a long time, there will also be international volunteers. This is cause and effect, working together all the time. In this way, both can be stronger in doing good deeds. We both can get good result what we want. That's why even if we cannot find the way how to survive the center, many other people will be trying to solve this problem for sure. In this way, we can survive anyway, for sure. That's good. If you are serious in that loving kindness or metta meditation, you can do. You are free. So also anyone is free to do one is willing to do. There's freedom here in this center. That is good. That's why do by yourself and also we are willing to support you. So also many people will support you if they know about your activities of doing good deeds. You just need to be dutiful in your practice. Before the Thabarwa Center open, I don't have much chance to do good deeds freely. That's why I cannot give the others the opportunity of doing good deeds freely. Only when I can open the Thabarwa Center in 2007, 45th Street Thabarwa Center in 2008, the Thabarwa Center Thailand, I am free to do good deeds. That's why I can give the others to do good deeds freely. That's why I can learn a lot in the Thabarwa Center. People are free to think, to speak, and to do. In this way, we can learn a lot by practice, not by thinking. Thinking without practice make many mistakes. Doing good deeds practically can solve many mistakes concerned with doing good deeds. In this way, the Thabarwa Center developed quickly because of there's freedom here in this center. Besides, the power of relying on doing good deeds is stronger in this center. Doing good deeds or the mark protect us, fulfill our need. Doing good deeds freely with mindfulness and detachment is everything for us. Now international volunteer became dangerous for most of the local people here. That's the problem you are facing now. If you are able to do good deeds seriously by using the method of doing only, you can overcome the difficulties for sure.
Next, we check in with Nyan, a musician and lay supporter of Thabarwa Sayadaw. First, we hear her thoughts from an interview in early May, just as Yangon began to shut down.
In 2008, I was like around 23 years old, and then my hobby of music to become a singer we did our recording of the music album, but the things doesn't went as I expected. So I was quite depressed, and I feel like maybe I would just abandon the job, and then I would just leave to abroad and walk there and get a normal life. So before I go, I want to set up my mind to be strong and like to get the calm and to have the mind to deal with everything that I'm gonna face in abroad. So I told my mom I like to meditate and join the retreat for a few days. And she said, this is very good, so you should go. I don't have much experience about the contact about the meditation center. So there is a shop at the corner of our street, and they borrow the books and the CDs of Dhamma talks like for free. It's like the library that everyone can go and then borrow the books and the CDs. So I went there and asked them if I want to join the retreat, where should I go? So they give me a few options, the Mogul Center and the other center in the cities. And then they said, there is one meditation center. It's more like a forest place. It's in Tallinn. It's a little bit far from the city. So it's attract me more than the other meditation center, which located in the city center. So they give me the card and the number is in there. So I call the number, and I didn't know that I was talking to the head monk. He said like the meditation, the method would be a little hard to understand. So wearing a yogi dress and the other rules are quite flexible because the method is quite strict, like quite hard, difficult to understand. So then it attracted me, and then I went there. I joined only 4 days retreat there because I didn't know how much I can go. But for the first 3 days, I didn't understand what the Dhamma talk is explaining, because he was talking like there is no I, no you, and like there is no me. You cannot count on your brain and your intellect, this and that. So it makes me questioning a lot about what he is talking. I want to know so much. So I keep investigating, and then I keep asking to the other nuns. So on the first day, I started realize, because of the help of a nun, she explained about rupa and the nama, those things, and the 4 elements, this and that. So it changed my views totally, and like my plan also changed. I don't want to go abroad and work. This is more important of life, the importance of the life, because making money is not that important, and then not to waste the chance of enlightenment to attain the enlightenment. So I keep on joining the retreats, and then I joined the Dhamma talk that's held in the city by Seattle, because he visit to the different places, like the home visit, and also to the patients and hospital. So many different places for Dhamma talk. So my mind totally changed. I enjoy being a yogi and enjoy practicing. This thing interests me more than anything I have been encountered in my life before. So this is how I know the center, and I get involved in it. The other role that I volunteer is like with my language skills. Like I can help the foreigner yogi when they come to our center to join the retreat, or just to know what is Buddhism or this and that. I can help them translating, communicating with the monks and nuns, and also sometimes when they like to know about Buddhism, I can share my knowledge as I know. And sometimes we did the video, like interviewing the patients who recover the disease just by the meditation and just by the Buddhism practice, the vipassana and the concentration. So we did some video like with the foreigner documentary. So this is what I do. And now I'm living in Yangon, but when like back in 3 or 4 years when I lived there, we can help any like small things in the center, like for the foreigner travelers when they came there. I can help them to get to know the center more. And also there are small problems like to get where to get the food, where to get things. And when they want to become a monks and nuns, I help them like this. I ordained as a nun for 5 months back in 5 years ago. And now I'm back to city and I'm just doing my normal working life as a music teacher. So I can only join some retreats, special retreats like for 10 days, and sometimes join the Dhamma trips and the Dhamma talk in the city. So yeah, that's it. That's how I discover their center and my volunteer role in there. So mainly I teach music to the expats who live in Yangon, and also like the children of the diplomats. And like we are quite happy together. And then suddenly the COVID-19 started. And at first we are not that terrified, and we're just doing like our routine as normal. And then the things get weird, and like we heard many news from the other countries, and like people started panic. And some of my students' family, they stopped taking their lessons, and some like they skipped a few lessons to the other weeks. Even some of my student parents, they are quite worried when I cough or something like that, and they ask me to wear the mask. This time, the COVID-19 hasn't arrived to Myanmar yet, but I've noticed that people started panic and terrified about it. And then we heard that our neighborhood country like Thailand and Malaysia, Singapore, they have some victim. The COVID-19 spread to the neighborhood country. And we also heard the announcement from the embassy from our country, like UK and US embassy. They announced, some are like the official announcement, but some are like just spreading news in their friends and the family and acquaintance. So people started acting like really serious problem. And after that, some people leave the country. Many of my students also leave the country. It's very sad. Some are like leave the country for good. So they haven't had the plan to leave the country before, but after the COVID is arrived to our neighborhood country, they just left. And after a few weeks that they left, the COVID-19 has found in our country, like the US citizen and the UK citizen, they just came back to our country. They are the Burmese who live in US and UK. So like when the COVID started arrived to our country, people started very scared, and like the things get worse, like not worse, but the worry is spread too quickly. So how should I say, like the things change day by day. At first, people stay going and doing the thing as normal, like nothing happened. But when the COVID started arrive to our country, like to Yangon, they start wearing masks. Like we can see many people wearing masks here and there, and then like people start to aware the prevention to the virus. Like we can see many things on the streets, like they just put the things and the water bottle and the hand gel and the sprays everywhere, like some are like the donation. After that, people start, how should I say, the company and the supermarket, they just reduce the working hour. So like we notice the things is changing, and then the government is handling really good from my point of view, because like they don't do the lockdown, the curfew right after the COVID is arrived, and they just do it very slowly, like day after day. They just put the comments and the announcements, like to stay home and to wash your hand, and then later like they announce the companies and the factory need to do as the discipline, and they have some criteria for the health and prevention for the COVID-19. So after that, like 15% of the employee, only 15% of the employee go to the work. And later the water festival came. So it's very good time, because we have like usual holiday, like 2 weeks. And then the government take it like a good chance to do more social distancing. So like they just put the announcement, like all the factories and the company need to, like all the work has to stop for 2 weeks until the end of April. And then now they just increased the stay home period until May 6th. So the things is not worse as we expected before, because many people scare like the pandemic, the virus will spread very quickly and many people will get sick, this and that. But the thing is, like, it's not that worse at the moment, because we only have over 150 patients. But the guessing from the WHO or something like the health organization, they guess it, the patient in May will be like over 1,000. So it's not very bad. But the thing is, like, we are kind of like, we lose our freedom. Like we cannot go out, and then we cannot see the people we love, like friends and family. So it's kind of depressing. We upset a little bit. But there's a good things too. Like we can do the plantings, and also like we can do other skills that we don't have yet. For example, like cooking, and also the online teaching and the stuff. As I am a teacher, I need to do my work even the situation is changed. So I adapt it, and now I'm started doing the online lessons, and it's quite fun. Like it's quite good. It's the advantages and the good things that we got from the COVID-19. Yeah, we had some announcement in the post about some nunnery and the monastery, like from the outskirts of the town. So I saw some posts that the nuns are in a bit of trouble to collect the food from the alms round and the things. But the thing is, like, people stay donating donation items. But I'm not sure if every nunnery and monastery get the support from the donor, because we cannot know some nunnery and monastery that are facing difficulty getting food. So like for some and famous places, they will have some problem from my point of view. But from like the city monastery and the nunnery, they are doing okay because they got some support from the government and also from the neighborhood and the usual donors. So they know that they're facing difficulty to go for alms round. But the meditation center is a very sad thing because usually for the water festival, people have the chance to join the retreat. But I saw many posts about like the meditation centers cancel the retreats, this and that. So people wouldn't have the chance to do the intensive meditation for them, like if they cannot do it by themselves. But still, I saw some online meditation retreats and the Dhamma talk. So some people have time at home, so they could do it anyhow. Recently, before the virus spread widely here, we joined the Dhamma talk to our Sayadaw, and he mentioned about the kilesa virus. So like kilesa virus inside us is always there, whether the COVID-19 virus is there or not. So we should always aware of our virus, and we shouldn't focus on the coronavirus or any other disease, because we already have the permanent disease until we highly attain the enlightenment. So this is one thing. And the other thing is like this is cause and effect, because in the world, and then like people get very greedy and also cruel, and like they just destroy the natural nature. So this is just the effect of the causes human do. So like the main problem is not the virus, it's the kilesa of the human and the people. So like we have angers, and also like human like to eat many different meats as possible as can be. So like they try many tastes, and then the food that's not very suitable for eating also. So like it causes the strange virus because people do the strange things. So this is cause and effect. And the things we should focus more to prevent is not just wearing masks, not just washing our hand, and like not just only focus on the virus. We should focus on our mental process, and then the, how should I say, the and clearness of the mind. So we should purify our mind, and then we should do the good deed. This is the best way of prevention. So like for the outside world, like physically, we should do the things we should do, like wearing masks and then washing hand, and also like doing social distancing. And as Buddha say, we shouldn't do the unnecessary things like going outside and chilling, or like having fun at the restaurant with friends, like for example like this, like unnecessary thing. Rather than doing this, we should focus more on our insights, like the mind. So it would be the best way to prevent the virus, and then we should go inside rather than going outside. So this is what they say, what they said in their Dhamma talk. The other Sayadaws also saying the same thing, like they are saying almost the same, like the kilesa virus and like the cause and effect. So yeah, what we see now in Yangon, like lockdown period is, but on the street there wouldn't be the people like usual days, and like you could even see the pictures and the photo of Yangon how is different from the usual time. So like it's like the city with silence, so no cars, no people on the street or the road, mainly on the main road. Just the delivery people will go with a bicycle, but in the small street, people stay going out, going here and there. At the beginning of the lockdown, people stay going to the tea shops like in the neighborhood and still sitting with a friend, like 2-3 people, or sometimes like more than 5-10 people in the tea shop. But later, the government announced that all the shops should only can only sell the takeaway. So like people couldn't go to the shops and couldn't stay and sit. The other thing is like I think it's about the awareness like on TV and the FN and most of the places, they keep sharing about the news. So people are always aware that virus is outside, and then the public, like the people who like to help preventing the virus, they just posted a few like some pictures like the virus are everywhere on the streets. So like with a cartoon and a comic, and sometimes like they just do their own videos of how dangerous it is to go outside. So people get the awareness, and then like many people started to stay at home and like don't go outside like usual day as they usually do. It's not totally locked down like you said in Europe, but stay for us like we stay inside home as possible as we can be, and we just go out for the grocery shopping and to buy some food. That's it. So we don't go out if it's not necessarily needed. I saw today a post about the musicians. Like the musicians are facing problem, difficulty to get the incomes, and some also like the performers and teachers. So like the major problem would be the financial problem. So they are a little bit worried about it. I am also one of them. Like if the COVID and the situation could change and the economic go down, and then like a little bit of anxiety is here, like as for me too. And I think the other people are also having their anxiety about the incomes, because the things started like suddenly change. The foreign investor also went back, and the tour guide and the traveling agencies, they have no work at all. So like this is what their anxiety. And about the virus also, I think Myanmar people usually have no fear that much about the disease and the viruses. So even our point of view to the COVID-19 is like it could die, but there's many things worse than this. And then maybe even if we get the virus affected to us, we could endure it and overcome it later. But the financial situation is a little bit harder, and then it's not about your resistance. It's all about the like a change, like the things is related to one another. So this is not the thing we could handle by ourselves. So this might be their anxiety for it. And then the other thing is the depression about staying at home for a long time, and then we cannot have our freedom and happiness like before. So people are depressed about it and expecting to go out, and then the COVID will go on very soon. Some people find it this is the foreign disease and not the local one, not the native virus. So yeah, the fear is a little bit there, to be honest. Like it's linked to the skins and their appearance and the virus, because in the news, like we just saw that Italians and like many Europe countries suffering it, and also Chinese, Korean. I think it's just the common fear, not only the European, just centering to the ego of like having the virus to us. It's more about it, not about the colors and the skins. This is what I see. But to compare to the news that we read from the other countries, like I read a news about some Chin people, like Chin ethnicity. They look so much like Chinese, and they are in US or maybe like, I'm not sure which country they are in, but they got beaten because they look Chinese, and that the virus is because of you guys and this and that. So I think in Myanmar, no one physically harmed to the foreigner, even like European, even when they see them, they just maybe like they're scared, or they will just complain, or they will just report to the authority. I think only that much, but they won't physically attack to the foreigners. Like I'm pretty sure they are facing some difficulty, because we have a few friends who went back to UK, and then he just paid the rent to the landlord for 6 months, our friend, and then as he have to leave the country immediately, he cannot find a good roommate and people who will rent his flat back. So they asked us to talk to the landlord to allow to get another tenant, but he just rejected. He don't accept it because he's scared of the virus and this and that things. Even if it's local, he won't let someone who he doesn't know stay in his flat. So I think people now, like they having anxiety about the virus going straight to you is the main problem. I don't think it's about the foreign or China or Myanmar.
Now we hear again from Auburn Nhan in a talk recorded just last week.
So after like 2-3 months lockdown in Myanmar, there are not much cases, and we don't have much people who die and like who are infected by COVID. So people get more relaxed, and then they started going out, and then like we will rarely see the people who wear masks on the road, and also the restaurants and the tea shops, it's open again. People enjoy going out again, but still the school were closed and the cinema are closed, and Shwedagon till now is closed. Shwedagon and other pagodas is closed till now, but the parks are open. The government school opened like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the international school, they will open tomorrow because August 19th they will open it again. So things get better and not much new patient. But recently, like yesterday, they said there are one more positive case in Sittwe. but still people don't worry much about it anymore. So this is how the things going in Myanmar right now. But the factories and the companies and many things, they said like the economy is not good like before, but still people are not very struggling much to compare to the other country in the West, from my point of view. So Yangon and Myanmar right now is not very bad. People are getting relaxed and back to the normal. And the Power Center, they talk about COVID quite a lot and quite frequently in the Dhamma talk when the lockdown started and people worry about it too much. Our Seattle mentioned about it in the Dhamma talk a lot, maybe like every day or something. But now their focus, it's more about the rubbish recycling and also like to make the changes in the center and also to give the message to the disabled and also to the normal public citizens, like to eat less salt and the seasoning and the oil, because to eat more vegetable rather than the meat, because people are getting more sick in the recent year because of the food and the chemical. So now the center is trying to give the message about how foods are very harmful. So this is what they are doing right now. But in the meantime, the Vipassana is the main focus, and the other things are the side things that go along with the Vipassana.
The initial funds that allowed us to set up this Insight Myanmar podcast came unexpectedly, and we did our best to stretch them as far as possible. Unfortunately, that generous startup donation could not have predicted the pressing need to cover our exploding health crisis and meeting the interest and concern many meditators have expressed about the situation at Burmese monasteries and meditation centers. So, if you would like to hear podcasts that address this new content or assist others in being able to access them, please consider making a donation to fund this work. Most all podcast contributors work entirely as volunteers, and those few receiving remuneration are meditators who have offered 50% or more discount for their professional services. Nonetheless, there is still no real way to produce an episode for less than several $100s. Whatever funds we are able to collect now will be used solely for producing these new episodes, and any additional donations will allow us to increase our run. Thank you for your support. Stay safe and be well. We welcome your contribution in any amount, denomination, and transfer method. You may give via Patreon at patreon.com/InsideMyanmar, via PayPal at paypal.me/InsideMyanmar, or by credit card by going to insightmyanmar.org/donation. In all cases, that's Insight Myanmar, one word, INSIGHTMYANMAR. You can also go to the GoFundMe site and search Insight Myanmar to find our present campaign. If you are in Myanmar and would like to give a cash donation, please feel free to get in touch with us. Our third speaker is Bhikkhu Varapanyo, an American monk who ordained under Thabarwa Sayadaw. We first spoke with him back in April, where he described his reasons for staying in Myanmar and life at the monastery under lockdown.
When I heard about COVID-19, I was in Malaysia, I believe, or actually in America, preparing to travel to Malaysia to join with my teacher, Seattle Tamasara. I heard about the outbreak, and it didn't really dissuade me from traveling outside the country. I don't think there was much information about the virus being outside of China, and I certainly didn't expect the kind of pandemic level situation that is happening now before I left. When I originally heard that the virus, the situation with the virus had become more like a pandemic, a worldwide event. I believe I was in either Malaysia or Singapore, traveling between those two countries on retreat, following with my teacher, Sayadaw Otamasara, and preparing to return to Myanmar, to go to Myanmar with him. Becoming more and more aware of the pandemic, I wasn't so concerned about my own health, and I felt confident in my practice of meditation, my practice of Buddhism, that everything would kind of take care of itself. And also, in being very close to my teacher at the time, it was more of a comfortable feeling than anything else. It's certainly concerning that the pandemic was happening, but there wasn't really any fear for me or worry for me personally. Some of the people and certainly the environment in Singapore and Malaysia slowly started to change to a more closed down. People became more and more aware of the seriousness of the situation, but it didn't become this major pandemic situation where, like, the U.S. was closing down its borders and all these countries were closing down their borders until I arrived in Myanmar from Singapore. My teacher, my master, he spoke directly about COVID-19 in terms of the virus of the mind, quarantining the mind, using this as an opportunity to engage with the mind. So his approach was to continue doing good deeds limitlessly and to practice non-attachment limitlessly, and in doing that, fighting the virus directly. Not only fighting the virus outside, but fighting the virus of the mind, the fear, the virus of fear, the virus of panic. So that was his emphasis at the time. After I left Singapore, spending around a month traveling from Malaysia to Singapore, participating in retreats with Sayadaw Otamasara, we returned to Myanmar. Maybe March 8th, arrived in Myanmar. And upon my arrival in Myanmar from Singapore, I began a 2-day trip to meet with my master as he had already began to travel within Myanmar. So right when I got to the airport in Myanmar, I headed to Mandalay, and then from Mandalay to Upper Myanmar to meet with him. And from there began traveling with him in Myanmar for about 2 weeks before settling down where I'm at now at Thabarwa Nature Center in Tanlin. Sayadaw Otamasara was consistently talking about the virus and encouraging people to continue to do good deeds, to practice non-attachment, focusing on the virus of fear, the fear side of the virus, and to watch our minds closely and to continue to do good deeds despite the virus, not to allow the virus to overcome the intention to meditate or to do good deeds or to practice non-attachment. When we arrived back to Thabarwa Nature Center, it was maybe only a few days before the kind of lockdown started happening. But in general, it was really business as usual for the most part. There wasn't that many changes happening, just more awareness of the virus. And in Sayadaw's teachings, in Sayadaw Otamasara's teachings, more focus on the virus and the upcoming situation that was expected to get more and more severe. The precautions that Thabarwa Nature Center took involved quarantining people who are new into the center, encouraging social distancing, encouraging people to wear a mask, to wash their hands. A lot of signs and kind of billboards went up trying to inform people about practices to reduce the spread of the virus. But because of the nature of a place like this, it is difficult to, it is not as simple to institute policies of social distancing or telling people to not go to the market, to not buy food is just not possible. So I think that Sīla Tamasara did his best within the conditions of this center to take care of the population and to encourage best practices. That was my impression. In terms of the people here at Thabarwa who are at a higher risk for maybe death or serious complications from COVID-19, I think it was a very important point for Sīla to protect those people and to make sure that they weren't in undue harm's way. So the hospitals became a little bit more restrictive to get in there and who was going in and who was going out. Like I mentioned before, certain people were quarantined if they were new to the center, or international people in particular were quarantined. But still maintaining an emphasis on this quarantine of the mind and quarantine of the virus of the mind. That really the way to deal with this virus in Thabarwa Nature Center is to do good deeds, to continue doing good deeds, and continuing to practice non-attachment. The situation in this center is that there are limitless possibilities here to do good deeds, to practice non-attachment, to receive health care, to receive housing, food, etc. But there are limits to the resources that this center has, and limits to the structural capabilities of the center. So I think Sīla is doing his best and did his best at that time to try and consider those people and could consider what could be done, not necessarily to give too much energy or too much focus to what should be done in terms of kind of like a Western standards or common medical standards, but what was actually possible to do to protect the people who live here. Personally, I don't keep up with the news too frequently, but the news that I was getting about what was going on in different parts of Myanmar and more so in Italy and Europe and the Americas, certainly very interesting and a little bit concerning, but not really destabilizing my mind all that much. My focus was more on my meditation practice and the capabilities that I have from where I'm at, doing social distancing, wearing a mask, washing my hands, things like that. So currently in Myanmar and throughout history, it's quite a nationalistic country, and people are very focused on either being Burmese or being from a Shan lineage or the ethnicities, and there's a lot of infighting historically through different ethnicities, different ethnic groups in Myanmar, and also nationalism when it comes to the English and Indian people who used to live here. There's a deep history of this kind of nationalism and isolationism in this country. So I think when COVID-19 happened and this idea got out that foreigners were carriers of the virus, it was quite natural for this idea to spread in Myanmar. Personally, as a Buddhist monk, I'm not in the same situation as most foreigners or most Westerners are who are living in Myanmar. So I personally can't speak so much to this atmosphere of fear or maybe a kind of rejection that many foreigners may face in Myanmar during this time, specifically some of the international volunteers facing this kind of issue. I've heard a little bit of the experience of just feeling rejected or feeling. One thing in particular is that some of the international volunteers, they have this idea that it's a kind of ignorance, that there's maybe someone to blame in regards to this idea getting around, or that there's someone to blame because of this fear that has developed or that is present in regards to COVID-19 and foreigners in this connection. But really, there's no one to blame. It's just an idea, and the approach to it, to dealing with that fear that other people have, is just to accept it and try to be compassionate for their suffering, for their fear. So I think it's something that certainly foreigners who are in Myanmar right now will face. It's not something I've dealt with much. I think that there has been a flavor, a small inclination of this worry or concern in regards to me being a Westerner or a white man, but really that, in robes and compared to being a monk in Myanmar, it doesn't hold much weight for the majority of people. Just being a monk is more Burmese than being Burmese in many situations. My meditation practice hasn't really changed very much during this time. Circumstantially, I've been in a position to begin teaching, which is a little bit of a new experience for me, teaching some of the international volunteers, some of the people who didn't really have another place to go, so they came to Thabarwa. So that's been a change in my practice to some degree, a new kind of practice that I've been experiencing, and I've found that rewarding, and also just trying to maintain this kind of stability and groundedness in my day-to-day life amidst the kind of real changing times, the internationally changing times. Well, with COVID-19 and with any virus or any kind of material situation that threatens the body or the mind, I definitely, in this time during the pandemic, it's been more alive for me that anything that is coming up, whether it's fear from a virus or anger about being judged, or having fear pointed towards you, or delusions about the kind of concreteness of a situation, it's all really coming from my mind, my individual mind, or your individual mind. Whatever it is, it's coming from our mind. So yes, the COVID-19 virus and many material situations can be very real and can be very important to deal with, but the affectation, the intellectual, the emotional response to that, it comes from ourself, comes from myself. So I'm working with that insight to deal with anger as anger, and to deal with greed as greed, to deal with fear as fear, and not kind of to put it out there, to put the responsibility of my mind and my virus of my mind into the world. COVID-19 as a virus for me represents my own mind, my own greed, my own anger, my own selfishness. And so that's how I approach it. Of course, I respect and appreciate the severity of the situation in the world, but in a day-to-day practice, outside of what I can do in terms of cleanliness and making sure not to affect other people negatively, I just see it in terms of my own mind and the arising of my own vexations and disappearing of those. I think that going through COVID-19, a lot of these countries are going to come to the conclusion that the systems of selfishness and greed and delusion that often go along with capitalism are not really prepared to deal with major worldwide situations. And it's certainly a teaching for the world of interconnectedness. Just because a virus happens in China, it doesn't mean we don't have to worry about it because it's China. It's all interconnected, and eventually, one way or another, we will experience that directly. And the same goes for someone in your neighborhood or someone in your family who is sick or is suffering and needs help, or someone across the country who needs help. For a while, we can imagine that it's separate and not going to affect us, but inevitably, we will realize the nature of interbeing and interconnectedness. And I think that COVID-19 is an opportunity to see that directly, and hopefully to grow from that seeing. A really inspirational story that I've come across is, I believe it's called Dharma Relief, and it was started by I believe a man called Guo Guo from Tallahassee Chan Center in Tennessee, I believe. And they've raised around $500,000 for medical equipment, for masks, different medical supplies that people have needed during this crisis. And it's actually been a really this one branch of Buddhism, this Chinese Chan, which is what many Westerners know as Zen Buddhism, and this individual Guo Guo, I believe, is his name, a monk. He has reached out to many different schools of Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism and secular Buddhism in the States, and they've really raised a lot of money. They've come together and are trying to help the world and support as many people as possible in the time of this crisis. So for me, I was really inspired by that, and it's great to see kind of the different Buddhist communities coming together and trying to offer in a material way, not just a spiritual way, to this situation. Try and reduce suffering in this way. Well, in this time of the pandemic, and a lot of people are dying, a lot of people are suffering, a lot of people are having a lot of sickness. It's really an opportunity to come back to our own intentions, to our own heart, to our own body and mind in this moment, and really look at and address, is this a time for anger? Is this a time for fear? Is this a time for greed, for selfishness? Or is it a time for peace, for compassion? To really inspire in ourselves this suffering, this difficulty, to inspire in ourselves wisdom and the intention to help other people, the intention to be a beacon of peace in our community, within our families, within our environment, even in the midst of turmoil. So I would really hope that anybody who happens to listen to this can remember peace in the face of suffering and adversity, and hopefully be a beacon of that for those around you and for yourself.
Now, let's check in once more with Bhikkhu Varapanyo from last week as he updates his life and practice since then.
It's been a number of months since COVID-19 began here in Myanmar. And now that these months have passed and COVID-19 hasn't kind of come to Thabarwa, and it hasn't spread in Myanmar so much, at this point it definitely feels to be an afterthought, and that we've kind of moved into the post-COVID-19 period here in Myanmar, and definitely in Thabarwa Center. There is still awareness of COVID-19. So when we go on alms round, when we go out into the city, it's very common that the monks will wear masks and will take precautions. So there is still a certain amount of precaution that's being taken, but I think the time of COVID-19 being on everyone's mind and kind of this worry of COVID-19 has really passed. I remember a few months ago when COVID-19 was just beginning and there was this air of fear, and it was almost like COVID-19 was determined, predestined to ravage through Myanmar, and especially Thabarwa. There are many sick people here, many people living in close proximity, elderly people, many people at risk. And there was this very common sentiment that COVID-19 would come here. And so people were very worried and concerned. And for a while, I believe there was even a restriction on alms round, on going out into the city for monks to receive donations, to receive foods and basic necessities. And traditionally, from Yangon, from the city, those would be brought here to Thabarwa. So I think for a while it was actually restricted for the monks to be able to do that. But now, of course, I believe that the monks are going back into the city, and there's a lot of people going on alms round and bringing donations back. So during the time of COVID, there was a really major feeling of worry and this almost predetermined feeling that COVID was going to come here. But now it really seems to be an afterthought. And I think that's in part how Myanmar has handled the COVID-19 response, with, there were even songs, kind of nationalist COVID-19 songs about defeating COVID-19 and wearing a mask and taking those precautions and being careful. There was a lot of restrictions to traveling throughout the country, especially for foreigners. And all of that, it feels like it's really reducing. Recently, I got quite sick. I had a high fever. I had, I believe, something along the lines of dengue, one of these mosquito viruses. I had a slight thought, I'm sick, COVID-19. But in general, when I went to the hospital here and when I mentioned to some other people that I was sick, COVID-19 didn't even come up. It's interesting to look back on those months ago when COVID-19 was kind of beginning to show its face here in Myanmar, and there was so much worry here at Thabarwa, and Sayadaw, the master of this center, was speaking a lot about COVID-19 and the virus of fear in relation to COVID-19. But now we've really kind of moved on, and the Sayadaw Tamasara is now he's more speaking about recycling and maybe the virus of waste. So I find it very interesting that here in kind of like a third world country, maybe it's not third world country, but it's much less developed than the Western world, how a country like this can have such a more unified and scientific response to the virus, to the pandemic, than a place like the United States, where the virus is still totally out of control from the news that I get from back in the States. Yeah, so for all intents and purposes, from my perspective here in Myanmar, COVID-19 has basically been defeated, and people are still taking precautions, and I certainly haven't forgotten about COVID-19, but I think people generally feel that it's not a major issue, and any kind of like pandemic level situation seems to be isolated to, a place like the United States. And I think at this point, countries like Myanmar, which we're still closed for international travel, but I imagine also countries like Thailand and maybe Japan, for example, they're a lot more concerned with people coming from the United States, where the pandemic is still really in, full effect. There's still quarantine. There's still only essential workers in the United States. A lot of people are still staying at home, and there's still debate about wearing a mask. I think here in Myanmar, it's getting to the point where the masks can start to be taken off. It's at that level of kind of resolution in Myanmar. And I think that's mostly to do with the unified response, the national response to the pandemic, and to really using it as an opportunity to come together and to unify, and under this common intention of preventing the spread of this virus, taking proper precaution, washing the hands and wearing masks. And I see it all over the place, any store or even here in Thabarwa, in most temples, there's signs about wearing a mask, about washing your hands, about being careful when it comes to COVID-19. Yeah, so for me, it feels like a post-COVID-19 world. But I know that internationally, especially in my home country in the United States, it's a totally different situation. And at this point, I'm really looking forward to there being a vaccine developed or a cure, whatever it would be, so that international travel can resume, and countries like Myanmar and Thailand can kind of continue to receive all of the financial support and the international support. A lot of NGOs and educators and doctors come from Western countries to Myanmar, especially, and I'd like to see all that get back to normal and see the rest of the world enter into post-COVID-19.
Finally, Kemachari, an Italian nun, joins us. She spoke to us from the Thabarwa Center in Italy in a talk recorded in April.
Where I am now, I'm in South Italy in a new Thabarwa Center, and I'm pretty alone in a quite big center, which is just happened like that before the virus came, there was many people leaving because of the cold, and we didn't have the heating system. And then just happened like that. So I'm officially alone, but in practice there is everyday workers coming to keep on the work here illegally. And the neighbors who are coming also illegally because they just want to spend time here also. So that's the current situation. Just for information, in Italy is quite tense. The tension is been quite high at the beginning because of the death of people. Now it's been, I think, 45 days we are locked down. So the tension is coming from the fact that just people get desperate because they don't have any more money to eat, and it's just extending more and more, and people don't see the end to that. So that's the situation. Beside that, I think, as you know, the most cases happen in the north, and in the south we got much less cases, but also the fear is very high because in the south we don't have hospital beds and we don't have doctors and we don't have machines. So if something happened here, it's surely becoming very dramatic quickly. So that's for the practical aspect. Or if I could have chosen the place before it happened, what came in my mind very fast was, I wished I could be in Myanmar when everybody was trying to escape Myanmar. I mean, all foreigners were trying to escape Myanmar. From my understanding, I was more safe if I was in Myanmar because of being in the country of Dharma and because people are doing a lot of good deeds, and they would understand that the way to protect oneself is to do good deeds and not to rely on medicine or doctors or hospital. And of course, I wanted to be near my teacher, and I didn't think about the comfortable aspects that maybe effectively. I mean, in practice, I'm probably much more comfortable here in Italy. But if I would have the choice, I think I would have jumped into Myanmar as soon as possible. But I don't have a regret. Things happen the way they have to happen, and I believe everyone in this situation has been locked down in the place they had to be locked down, with the people they had to lock down. Is it for the good or for the bad? It seems like it's a time where everybody is paying his karma, a good and the bad one. So here the conditions have been restricted more and more strictly. That's, from asking people not to go out and unnecessary things until having 3 kind of different police around the streets to check out who is coming out and giving a fine to people who are going out, and then finally trying to force people to wear the mask and the gloves, possibly even at home, which is completely foolish. But that's the aim. Even now that actually we got the death rate decreased by nearly half these last days, the instruction remain still very limited, and we hope a kind of opening on the 3rd of May, but we also had been always pushed from 2 weeks to weeks, so we don't believe it in anymore. But the good thing that happened here is in this village where we are, where there actually was no case so far, is they've been setting up a lot of volunteering for, when things have been starting to last for a while. They started to motivate people to say, okay, we know a group of volunteers who would bring the food to the one who start to have difficulty to buy food. A group of people also would, they have been opening a bank account because, again, we don't have much social system working in South Italy, so there is no fund, nothing. So they called the more wealthy people to send money to a bank account and use all this money for the benefit of all to buy some material for the hospitals and these kind of things. So there is many nice things that we've been seeing happening here, and blood donation has been going on. This kind of ambulance setting up for one morning in a place, and people can come and donate with all the restriction, with gloves and protection. But I mean, it's still showing that the good sense was going on, and the value of helping each other, which is maybe very strong in the south. I don't know if it would be the case in the north. Besides that, there was a lot of tension growing up again between the north and south due to this pandemic and due, of course, of the past condition, which is now leading probably to some serious issue at the end of the story. So it's also breaking up a lot of things, awakening a lot of things. When it started, the first thing I felt is like, actually for me, it's not unpleasant at all, in a way that I just find myself with much more time than before because I don't have the public coming, and I was extremely busy by doing this new center, establishing these new centers in the last months, and being not exposed to public gave me the chance to meditate more. So I didn't see any I didn't see much inconvenience for me, except the fact that I cannot go to arms round. I got difficulty to get donation or the food and these kind of things. But the main point is, as monk or monastics, I guess we all are trained to live accordingly to what we get, which is very unsure. And so we are basically, the mind is prepared to this kind of situation, dramatic situation or unexpected situation or very unstable situation. And I was grateful from the beginning, thinking that, well, many people are now ending up in maybe in very small flat with a full family, maybe children or whatever, and they have been never learning how to deal with their own mind and how to deal with some restrictions, because everybody has been always indulging in everything. And I was feeling very, very, very grateful that I had been able to learn all this before. So I was very grateful to be a meditator and to prepare my mind to face this kind of a situation where you have to face isolation, but also restriction, but also, of course, the fear of death or disease, which is obviously a very huge thing that the people have to deal with now. And we can feel, I mean, if you look on the media and these kind of things, it's I'm still amazed actually people could do it. People who are totally unprepared have been accepting to play the game, and I guess the motivation for them was the fear, which is quite different from the monks who go in a retreat intentionally, and there will be side effects. So the main thing I worry about is the fear of people and the impact it will be on them, on their health, and on the world, I mean, by itself. And that's, if I have the chance, and I think that's a little bit what I'm trying to do through Facebook posts on different things, is try to make people understand that the fear is damaging them a lot, and that will make them make mistake, if not now, surely in the future. So I see it as a great experience. I believe everybody have been facing his limits and have been facing his attachment and understanding things that they could not have faced and understand and see before. So I see many things positive in that, and I just hope people will understand the great need they have to understand more about the mind and how to do good deeds and how to deal with the fear of death and disease. And I hope people will understand the necessity of meditation centers. One event that was, or one thing happening here that was really striking me correlated to this is from the beginning of the story here, we had the fashion to draw some rainbow, to design some rainbow and to write something in Italian, and everything will be all right. And you could see this kind of flag everywhere with a rainbow and saying everything will be all right. It's showing this kind of make-up society where we want to believe or make us believe that everything is going to be all right and there is no fear and everything is fine and there is a happy end in everything. And that's completely fake, and that's covering and that's creating more fear, because actually we believe, we know, we're telling ourselves stories. And beside that, there is this aspect to say, we want to go back to what we left because we attached to it, but actually it was not all right before also. I mean, most of the world was starving, we were polluting and poisoning ourselves, and we were going to die also very soon from other things. So a lot of behaviors in this situation are showing up the weakness and the mistakes we are doing in daily life that need to be changed. And I still believe for who have the karma now, it will be a very enlightening time, and for who doesn't have enough karma or cause now, there may be a disease time. Disease in the mind and in the body. I think just a word about Myanmar, that For what I understand, and what Sayadaw also always teaching, Sayadaw Tomasara is always teaching, is that the mind is the most important for Burmese, and the fear in the mind will be very dangerous for Burmese. I don't think he means that it's not dangerous for a Westerner. It's maybe just like because the Burmese can do a lot, and a lot based on their mind. So if the mind is getting fear, they could do also a lot of wrong things. And there is definitely a difference from Myanmar and from other countries, and you can see it by the numbers of infection and these kind of things right now, because Burma is the closest country to China where there is most contact, and there is no reason that Italy has been touched before Myanmar, and that it has been spreading so fast and so strongly in Italy and not in Myanmar. So there is definitely something that we need to learn from that, I believe, which is joining what I was saying at the beginning. If I would have had the chance to choose the place to be, I would have felt much more safe in Burma, in Myanmar. And maybe people could investigate about which place spread more, and learning from all this experience in different way. What I'm doing right now is daily I'm checking the number of deaths, and in Italy, of course, and other countries like Myanmar, and just having an overview of the situation. And I have to follow just knowing if there is any news on the legal point of view that we are allowed or not allowed to do this and that. And at the beginning, I did go through all this news and all this, all this information or misinformation, the legal one, the private one, these kind of things. And I could see that actually it was really eating my mind, and I decided not to go into this anymore. And I discovered that the less you click on the things on the internet, the less things come to you. The more you click on the things, the more dramatic things coming to you. So it showed me also how much internet or the media is actually manipulating a lot of the mind of people. And if people doesn't have the wisdom to stop clicking on things, then they really get swollen by a very strong wave of negative things. Is it from following the WHO or following the anti-WHO movement or whatever conspiracy theory, or G5 or Chinese or whatever? At the end, one have to be very, very strong when he's using this media. And this is also one of the things people should learn now, because it's something like we're taking a break, we can step out of some things, and it may get very, very fast after a while, just like when someone go out from a retreat where there is all this explosion of things. Think about the worldwide explosion that's going to happen. So maybe people should have a very great interest to study their mind and the media and the impact of the media on the mind, especially when we are ending up now in a situation where we can rely only on the media. We cannot communicate each other. Without media, we are all locked down and separate. So basically, everybody has to rely on media or technology to be united with people, because physically we have been separated. So that's showing also a lot of things that going to happen in the future more and more, and that we really have to be careful and to prevent our mind about this. And the sad thing is also seeing our own mind. I mean, I was maybe checking at the media at the beginning by fear of knowing the number of cases increasing. And now I think that's something that's going to happen in every country, that according to the time you've been spending in lockdown, the mind will go through different phases. There is a first phase of being a lot improved by all this change and all these lifestyles change, and all the fear going up with this rising cases. And then there is a stage where normally the mind just gets used to it. You get used to see 1,000 deaths per day, and you get used to be locked in your house, and you get used to be controlled and not be allowed to walk in the street, and not to be allowed to have your human rights or whatever. And it just become normal at some point, and there is boredom coming, and there may be a phase also where, like the practical phase, where people start to worry about the money and how they're going to make a living and how they're going to overcome all the debt they're accumulating. And I think every country is going through these phases. To be honest, I catch the mind watching at this death number and hoping it's decreasing just because it's going to be the end of this situation only if the numbers decrease. So I guess Italy has been starting first, so we see different steps, and I hear the reaction from people who contact me, and they have all these phases going on, and I don't know about what the next phase, but for sure there will be the end of the phase, the excitement, the fear, and probably also this continuous fear for people who didn't take care of the mind, that there will be always this fear that it's coming again, or starting again, or it's going to spread again. And there is all these kind of things that's happening, and it's still showing somehow this unitedness in the world. Just kind of wave who's been hitting first China, and then Italy, and then other country. And according to the culture and according to diverse conditions, the reaction may be different, but there is still some common factors that we have to cross.
Now we talk once more with Kemachari as we asked her to update us last week about any recent developments in her life.
Okay, so now is August 12th. So difference now, the situation from the COVID point of view is obviously now in Italy there is no more cases, and even there is many doubts about all the statistics and the numbers we have seen before, because many doctors have been speaking up about manipulation of the doctors themselves and manipulation of the numbers and the statistic and everything. So there is a bit of anger around. Population is clearly saying we will not make any more lockdown, and there's many events that population group and manifest against what happened. But there is still officially emergency state, and there's a will obviously in the country to make people believe that we are still in a very risky position. And I think people are very tired about this. Probably in the north is another story, but here in the south, the atmosphere is quite relaxed, and the people are just wearing the mask in the pocket or somewhere, just not to get, to show some respect for the others. But basically, people stopped wearing the masks. There is some old people maybe who still focus on TV and would still carry the mask, but pretty much is behind for what I feel. When I look back, I think although the center had to close the door officially, I was opening the doors every day, and if anyone wanted to enter, they could have entered. And of course, the way of communicating with the people was internet. So I did post every day some teaching of Sayadaw, who was also teaching a lot about COVID in Myanmar. So I was translating in Italian and posting regularly every 2 days pieces of teaching. And besides, I was writing myself also a lot of reflection about death, about the prison of the mind, and about detaching and what we believe to be freedom, all these things. I think during this quarantine, people were very sensitive to many things, and they were aware about many limitations they had in the mind, so it was a good time. And also, beside that, I was posting every day or every second day images, photo of the center, the activity of the center, because although we were closed, we did keep on the work with the plumber, and the worker here came every day, partly illegally, and from one side I think it helped the public to see life was going on and that there was not necessity to speak only about the COVID every day. And for the workers who came here, it was definitely, I think I saved their mind, because they were going back home in the evening, and in the morning they would come here very terrified with many anger and fears in the mind. And when they were spending here the full day, they were relaxing, and there was like a completely peaceful world they had the chance to be in, because although we were aware of the situation and following the events as, just to be informed, still I was, whenever we were talking about this, I was teaching them also that the fear is not helping, that we can try to be careful, but it's also not focus all on that. And it happened that I was asked to host African immigrant during the pandemic. So I accepted, of course, because that poor man had a leg broken and he had no place to go. And it was also the chance for me to teach to the workers that I would not deny to help someone who is really in need for a potential risk. And that has been, I think, a big struggle for them to accept this idea. And then they also understood that actually between helping someone who is in an emergency state or refusing to help because there is a potential risk that we actually don't really know, it was not wise to just reject people. And through the photos and things, I think the population have been understanding what we are doing. And after the emergency state, when the things opened again, many people came and they showed a lot of respect and gratitude for our presence here. So I think that naturally people understood more what was the importance and benefit of having a Buddhist meditation center in here. And for me, and automatically I'm trying to share it for people, I think the Thabarwa teaching is quite suitable for this, because not focusing on created truth, and especially teaching people that nothing can protect you beside your action, your karma, or doing good action. So in that case, everybody understood we are on the mercy of something we don't know. There is no way to protect ourselves, no vaccination, no medicine. Even people who are going to the hospital don't seem to be helped there. So it's the time to understand that there is no safety. And Thabarwa, Seattle, always teaching, and every center is set up in a way to help people to do more and more good deeds and help them to understand that this is a way to protect oneself and also the way to develop more understanding. So we didn't have to really adjust the teaching to the situation. It just was true and very obvious in this situation. And then that's it. I think there is no, for sure, is not way to come back to what it was before. It's clearly people have been impacted very highly, and especially children. I did see more fear in the children. I can feel the children are still quite impacted by this story and would not come back to the normal life they had before. Even they go again outside and everything. There's definitely a change in the behavior. Some more children came to see and to ask how to meditate, which is probably also impact of being so close and so alone with their own mind. And maybe again, Thabarwa is a very natural way where we don't emphasize on religion, and that's helpful for many children here who maybe have a very strong Catholic background to be in a center which is not so much, although we have monks and nuns here, and obviously we are monastic religious.
it has been set up in a very clear way. Every Thabarwa center is a social center. It's not just for monks and nuns, or not just for Buddhist people. So that's, I think it's a great advantage that everybody understand and can feel free to come and stay with us or visit us anytime. I'm happy you inquire about these kind of things, and I think also it's really good for everybody to listen different point of view from different country, different situations, so that people would not attach to their own situation. It's so easy now to be isolated in this pandemic. People have been isolating one from the other, and his own situation become his own world, and maybe he believes he's the standard of the world. And to see people living the situation in different ways may be very helpful to detach from our own experience.
And now, a message about these special coronavirus episodes. First, a caveat about our current podcast being produced during this expanding global pandemic. In this new age of social distancing, face-to-face interviews are of course no longer possible. An obvious consequence of this is technical. None of the guests we interview have access to a professional recording studio. Indeed, as some are living remotely in the Burmese countryside, they have little more than their phone's microphone to record and send messages. Our expert sound engineers have done their best to improve and enhance the quality, but there is a limit to even their magic. In a time when major network programs resort to home-recorded and mailed-in content, we are also trying to adjust to these new rules and limitations. So while we apologize for any difficulty you may experience as you listen to these episodes, we appreciate your understanding of the challenges we face in producing them. On another note, please keep in mind that the interviews on this episode were recorded at some time in the past, maybe just a few days to perhaps even more than a month ago. As a result, some of the factual details conveyed in these interviews may be outdated by the time you hear them. We hope you find some light and wisdom in the voices that follow. We're greatly appreciative for the time that all the guests generally provided to share their words and perspective. We wish all our listeners to stay safe and mentally sound and use this challenging experience to grow in the Dhamma. Sometimes we get questions about what we look for when choosing our guests, so I'd like to take a moment to answer. As you may have noticed, we conduct interviews with a diverse range of people whose lives all share one common thread: familiarity with Buddhist practice in Myanmar. These include lay practitioners, as well as monastics, meditators, teachers, and abbots, foreigners and locals, as well as scholars, authors, aid workers, activists, and others. When selecting guests and conducting interviews, our main goal is to allow them to tell their own personal story, in their own voice and from their own perspective. Their stories also evoke a kind of hero's journey. Our intention in these long-form interviews is to actively listen while encouraging a deeper exploration with mindful questions, taking whatever time is needed for the guests to tell their stories in full. We hope that listeners benefit from hearing about how our guests' commitment to Dhamma practice has informed their life decisions, and that they can gain inspiration from learning about their experiences and perspective. In the case of scholars and authors, we dig into their academic work to discuss historical matters related to Burmese Buddhism, as we believe that it is helpful for meditators to learn more about the background and context of how the Dhamma has impacted society and culture over the years. Regarding this particular show, we certainly hope you enjoyed hearing from the guests as much as we did in interviewing them. If so, I want to bring up a gentle reminder that there is a minimum cost associated with every episode, and we are 100% listener supported. If you would like to hear more content like the show you just heard now, please take a moment to consider giving a donation to keep our engine running. You have been listening to the Insight Myanmar podcast. We would appreciate it very much if you would be willing to rate, review, and/or share this podcast. Every little bit of feedback helps. If you are interested, you can subscribe to the Insight Myanmar podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Also, please check out our website for a list of our complete episodes, including additional text, videos, and other information at www.insightmyanmar.org. That's Insight Myanmar, one word, INSIGHTMYANMAR. If you cannot find our feed on your podcast player, please let us know and we will ensure that it can be offered there. There was certainly a lot to talk about in this episode, and we'd like to encourage listeners to keep the discussion going. Make a post, request specific questions, and join in our discussions on the Insight Myanmar podcast Facebook group. You are also most welcome to follow our Facebook and Instagram accounts by the same name of Insight Myanmar. And if you're not on Facebook, you can also message us directly at burmadhamma@gmail.com. That's BURMADHAMMA@gmail.com, and we're also active on Dhamma Wheel. If you'd like to start up a discussion group on another platform, let us know and we can share that forum here. Finally, we're open to suggestions about guests or topics for future episodes. So if you have someone or something in mind, please do be in touch. We would also like to take this time to thank everyone who made this podcast possible, especially our two sound engineers, Martin Combs and Tharng A. There's of course Zach Hessler, content collaborator and part-time co-host. Ken Pransky helps with editing. Dragos Bandita and Andre Francois produce original artwork, and a special Mongolian volunteer who is asked to remain anonymous does our social media templates. We'd also like to thank everyone who assisted us in arranging for the guests we have interviewed so far. And of course, we send a big thank you to the guests themselves for agreeing to come and share such powerful personal stories. Finally, we are immensely grateful for the donors who made this entire thing possible. We also remind our listeners that the opinions expressed by our guests are their own and not necessarily reflective of the host or other podcast contributors. Please also note, as we are mainly a volunteer team, we do not have the capacity to fact-check our guest interviews. By virtue of being invited on our show, there is a trust that they will be truthful and not misrepresent themselves or others. If you have any concerns about the statements made on this or other shows, please contact us. This recording is the exclusive right of Insight Myanmar podcast and may not be used without the expressed written permission of the podcast owner, which includes video, audio, written transcripts, and excerpts of any episodes. It is also not meant to be used for commercial purposes. On the other hand, we are very open to collaboration, so if you have a particular idea in mind for sharing any of our podcasts or podcast-related information, please feel free to contact us with your proposal. As you know, our podcasts are 100% listener-supported. We welcome your contribution in any amount, denomination, and transfer method. You may give via Patreon at patreon.com/insightmyanmar, via PayPal at paypal.me/insightmyanmar, or by credit card by going to insightmyanmar.org/donation. In all cases, that's Insight Myanmar, one word, INSIGHTMYANMAR. If you'd like to give especially to support our new run of coronavirus episodes, please go on the GoFundMe site and search Insight Myanmar to find our campaign. If you are in Myanmar and would like to give a cash donation, please feel free to get in touch with us. Thanks, and see you next show.